Today's Keys to the Commonwealth episode is brought to you by Nova Insurance. Are you a business owner or property manager in Kentucky or the surrounding states? Protecting your investment has never been more crucial. Nova Insurance specializes in commercial risk advising for your commercial business, as well as your commercial real estate and rental properties. With personalized service and expert advice, Nova Insurance ensures you are covered from every angle. Call 859-687-2004 today or visit them at novainsuranceGroup.com. Nova Insurance, securing your future one policy at a time. Now, today's episode. Welcome back to another episode of the Keys to the Commonwealth podcast. Landry here, and excited today to bring another podcast today with one of the owners of Ruggles Sign company. This is a company that's been around for a long, long time. I'm not sure how long. I know it's been a long time, and we'll find out more. Without further ado, introduce Tim Cambron to the Keys to the Commonwealth podcast. Tim, appreciate you having us over.
Well, thanks for having me, Landry. Happy to be here and tell a little bit of the story about Ruggles Sign. You wondering how long. It was founded in 1946.
1946, okay.
1946 by a gentleman by the name of John Ruggles.
Okay.
And John, it was started in Lexington. John was
downtown, right?
Downtown, yeah. He after World War II, he came back home. Decided he wanted to be a neon tube bender. Went to neon tube bending school, and
so that was, hold on. There was a school for neon tube bending?
Yeah, down in North Carolina, I think.
At that point in time,
yeah.
Okay.
And
it's not like it was everywhere. You just had to go. Okay.
He actually, I think, had aspirations to be an attorney, but stopped short of that. And anyway, he went to this school, and he came home for the weekend. And that weekend there was like a hailstorm, and he was nearly complete with his course, and he thought he was on his way, so he just started repairing signs, bending neon, and here we are, in 2024. But it was a very small company when my wife and I went to work for him. And Anna's, my wife Anna, she and I own the company.
Right.
Yeah, co-own it. Yeah.
Both are co-own it. And so 1946 started in Lexington. I mean, was it just more local signs they were doing at first and stuff like that? Were any notable signs? Like, did they do the Parkette Drive-In sign by chance?
Well, that is one of their iconic early signs.
Okay.
And that's what they did back in the day. It was all local stuff. Like they did the original Paul Miller. In fact, if you look in our lobby today, you'll see half of the original Paul Miller sign. It's a neon sign.
Okay.
But they did the Parkette, they did the Paul Miller, and they did the local stuff like Catalina Motel, and they would go out into rural towns in Kentucky, but nothing really out of state to speak of at all.
Yeah.
I think they did some stuff for Kentucky Finance maybe early on out of state, but it was really just a local company.
So when did you all jump into it then, as far as your story?
Well, I had been in college, and I set out for a bit. Anna was finishing her degree at UK, and I went to work for a sheet metal contractor. And there's a lot of sheet metal in this industry, and I guess it was about 1986. John approached us both. Well, actually, Anna went to work for him as a part-time secretary, a receptionist, while she was finishing up at UK. And he reached out to me, and initially I didn't take the bait. I just didn't have any interest in sheet metal. Was getting a little bit slow, and I thought, you know what? Why don't I try it? So I went there just to try it. Had no intentions whatsoever of staying. In fact, she and I tried to resign. Went to his house one night, and he basically said, "Look, hang with me. We'll find a niche, and all will be fine." And I thought, yeah, right.
Right.
But he was right. He really was right. It wasn't a year later. We did find a little niche, and today, we specialize in national retail. We picked up an account. It's probably been a little over 30 years ago. It's probably closer to 35 years ago. A mall was being built in Richmond, Kentucky, over by EKU.
Yeah.
I'll tell you how long ago it's been. They built the mall, and it's since been leveled, and it's no longer there. But we got the tenant list for a small little jewelry firm. Had 57 stores.
Okay.
And reached out, and they said, yeah, we need a sign for this center, but we also need one in Paramus, New Jersey. We need one in Morristown, Tennessee. And we did those. Yeah. And it just started rolling after that. That company today is the largest jeweler in the world, and we're still working for them. And so from that, we had a lot of spinoffs, though. We do a lot of work for, Nike, Limited Brands, which is no longer, it's split up into many different companies, but Abercrombie, Bath & Body, Victoria's Secret, Express, you go on and on.
So, I mean, roughly, if you're in this area of the country and you're walking around malls or strip malls outdoors, a lot of these signs, I mean, is it safe to say that you might have a sign in over half of the strip malls, kind of this part of the, I don't know how to gauge it here type thing?
I mean, you can go into any mall in the United States that it's a decent mall, and you'll have at least a dozen, if not 20 signs that we produced here in Versailles.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking, but I just was not, I didn't
And a lot of
want
strip
to
centers too, a lot of freestanding and strip centers.
For sure.
Because the malls are not as, not as sexy as they used to be. People like the Summit and Hamburg, we do a ton of that type stuff. Like, for example, over the last few weeks, we've had truckload after truckload of signs going to Jenks, Oklahoma, which is right outside of Tulsa. And Simon Properties opened a brand new outlet center there, and we probably have 15 or so projects in there, big projects. Yeah. They've got signs on the storefront, and they've got all these towers that are, have signs on them. So it's been a big project for us.
I mean, so you all do, obviously we got smaller signs behind us with a lot of name brands and so forth like that. But I mean, what kind of size up do you all, like what's one of the biggest ones you've ever done that you can remember?
Back in the day, we used to do a lot of work for Fifth Third Bank, and on the financial center in downtown Lexington, the logos on that building are 26 foot tall, 26 foot wide.
Okay, that's what I was kind of thinking if you did some of
those. We produced those, here in Versailles. We basically built them, took them apart, took them back down, and reassembled them on the wall. But we do stuff like that. And a lot of our work is, people realize, there's just a storefront sign. A lot of our clients, they'll have 10 signs on the store, 2 or 3 storefront signs for a corner location, and then inside the store they've got some really nice stuff like Bath and Body. If you go into a Bath and Body,
it's everywhere.
They're loaded with signs, and then we also do a lot of digital printing. But if you've noticed the storefront on a Bath and Body, it's got this gingham print. It's like a blue and white plaid. Look.
I mean, if I'm being honest, I got to say I haven't been in a Bath and Body that much. So
I get it, I understand. But even if you're driving like through Summit, you look up and you see the storefront. It's kind of iconic. It's kind of like the McDonald's logo,
For sure. So back to the history-wise, I mean, obviously we're now in Versailles, Kentucky, Versailles for those maybe that are in, not from here or something like that. But at what point in the history were you a part of when it moved from Lexington to Woodford? I guess I assume that kind of started spinning off a lot more bigger contracts nationally in that sense with those first couple of malls that you did there, and how did we get from there to here?
Well, that's a great question. Quite simple. I grew up in a small town. I grew up in a little community just outside of Bardstown, between Springfield and Bardstown.
What community is that?
It's called Fredericktown or the Burg, if people knows that part of the country. It's directly, dead center between Springfield and Bardstown, small little community. And long story short, my wife and I...
I've driven through it. I've actually taken that strip before.
It's beautiful. It sets off in a little valley. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah,
cool
I think
spot.
I had to go through it going to Maker's Mark one time.
Yeah, exactly. You're right there near Maker's Mark also.
Yeah.
So long story short, Ann and I, we graduated high school together, high school sweethearts. And when we got married, we said early on that we wanted to move back to a small community and raise our kids. We're both Catholics, and having a Catholic school was real important. So we were downtown Lexington, right behind Transylvania, where the athletic fields are. Mm-hmm. That's where our office was.
Okay. Yeah.
And so Transylvania was interested in that property. So Ann and I would go out at night looking for locations. We were going to build new in Lexington. And then the Bluegrass Parkway leads you right to Bardstown. And Versailles is a very centrally located town in the state. Think about it. It's close to the Bluegrass Airport. It's relatively close to Louisville. You get on the Parkway, you get back to Bardstown, and it's very convenient to Lexington. So it's very convenient. And
while still retaining a lot of the small town feel and not letting get overgrowth with just change that no one really everybody. And then I think we're in a day and age where obviously younger people here, maybe like your daughter or somebody who's like, maybe there's a little bit of growth, but we don't want to lose what we already have here in Versailles type of scenario, for sure.
Well, and that was the bonus. We wanted to get to a small community, but then we didn't realize how beautiful Woodford County was until you really take it all in and appreciate the fact that you can go anywhere and see a ton of rooftops, but here it's hard to build. There's drawbacks to that too, because it's hard for people to stay in this community because there's just not a lot of starter homes, and it's not as affordable as most small towns might be because it's so close to Lexington. But it was all about being close to the airport was big too. A lot of our clients at the time were coming to the airport, so we felt like if we were in Versailles, downtown Lexington to the airport versus the airport to Versailles, it's actually probably closer. Yeah. And so the airport, and then being able to raise our kids in a small community, go to a small school, and it was a home run. It was way better than we ever thought it would be.
Yeah. So obviously, for those that don't know, I just moved to Woodford County and had spent most of my life in Lexington. So I will say the change of pace and then how the ease of getting things done, including literally just going to the DMV the other day, and I had an amazing experience, which no one ever says you have an amazing experience going to the DMV, but I did, and it was awesome. I was like, no, this is different. This is different.
That's the kind of stuff that I like. I like to be able to go places and do things, easily and quickly and with a smile on your face.
Yeah.
And you get that in a small community. You really do. So
for sure. So
it's been great.
At what point did you all then kind of transition? Were you running the company? I guess at that point, when was that? When you moved out to Woodford, when was that?
Yeah, it was about 30 years ago.
Okay.
And so we actually moved the business before we actually built a house. I built my house here to be 28 years in December. So we got the business relocated and then we built our home. But it's been perfect. It's convenient, like I said, to a lot of stuff. And we actually came over, found a building already built. We wanted to build brand new, but we found a building that would work for us. And we outgrew it real quick. We actually bought land, doubled the size of it, and then we stayed in that building for about, it seemed like it was about 16, 17 years. And then we bought a farm across from the post office, I think it was 113 acres. It already had land zoned industrial. We were going to build a brand new facility, had an architect draw it up, and while we were doing all that, we had been proing and conning this building here, the old Coleman building, which is on 27 acres. It was 250,000 square feet. And plus it had a couple of outlots where you could build additional buildings, which we have since done. And then, I'm a pro and con kind of guy. My wife and I both sit down with T-charts, and every time we did it, it always said we should come here.
Yeah.
We'd already bought the farm. So anyway, we get the pricing back, and we saw what the numbers looked like, and then we said, you know what, we can go over there and have probably twice the space for the same money. And so we chose to do that, sold the farm, and the rest is history. But it's been a great move.
It's about 30 years here then. And so
we've been about 10, 11 years in this building.
In this building.
But 30 years ourselves altogether.
Yes. Talk about though, as far as that expansion and that mindset, and that's been one of my things lately is, when you go from a small business, obviously it was probably more of a local small business type of scenario, but you just obviously have to have a different mindset when it comes into thinking outside of just your immediate area or your immediate where you're at as far as growth. Talk about like how you were approaching that, how you had to make changes or what things changed as far as the business went from like, especially as a business leader, entrepreneur, that's not a small task to take it from a small business to a rather larger business with more of a national footprint type of scenario.
Yeah, no, that too is a great question. We actually, at the time, we were just a small operator, and then we were installing signs for other companies, like people that would produce signs for like McDonald's, General Motors, Ford, Chrysler, and all that stuff. And we saw what they were doing, and I thought, we can do that on a smaller scale. So when we started getting into the national accounts, the first one, I saw real quickly that, that's the way to go in this business, because the custom business while it's fun and challenging, it's frustrating because you do it once and you say, if I did that again, I'd change this. Well, you don't get a chance to do it again. So we like to take somebody's logo, refine it, build it once, and they approve it, and then build it 500 more times or 50 more times. Even if you're scaling it up and down, it's the same look. And so that's been a real blessing for us. And we found a niche that at the time, the timing was perfect. There was a need for this. Retail was starting to blow up. And so we really got in with a good company to start with. And what really set us over the top is one of the guys that we got to know really well there left and went to work for a major company that had a lot of retail. And he took us with him with a little bit of effort. It took somebody going bankrupt to get us in the door. But once we got in the door, the rest is history. I mean, they were the game changer.
Yeah, and obviously we all realize that bending, tube and so forth like that probably still exists, but for the most part, a lot of things obviously have evolved and changed with LED and so forth like that. So in what way has, in what way has that changed your all's business? Maybe it hasn't changed it much, maybe it has, as well as like where is everything going in this world of signs and like that? Because obviously I don't think signs are going away, but I'm sure it's evolved in some places as malls are maybe not as popular as they once were and so forth. Yeah.
Well, John started as a neon tube bender, and that was kind of our forte for the longest time, but neon is pretty much a thing of the past. I mean, even like this sample wall you see, We use CNC equipment today that we create faux neon, and we dome it to make it look like it's a tube, but it's lit with LEDs.
Yeah.
The beautiful thing about that is neon is high voltage. It's very fragile when you ship it across the country like we do. And then when you make repairs to it, some years later, you got a darker tube versus a lighter tube. You can see all the repairs. Whereas LEDs today, it's so easy. You don't have to have as much skilled labor to put it in, to install it. Breakage is, pretty much non-existent, and longevity-wise, it lasts far longer, way better from an energy standpoint. So LED was a game changer for the industry as a whole.
And that started mid 2000s?
Yeah, They early on they had some issues. It took us a few years because like the whites, they were not real consistent. When you would put a lens on it and put a filter on it, what you thought was white, you'd have a blue and a yellow, and you have to coal through and clean all that up. But that's a thing of the past. It's much better today. I mean, they started early on with like taillights and cars and traffic signals. That they were using reds and stuff. That they got those figured out way early. But the whites, it took them a while.
Interesting.
But the last 15 years or so, it's been solid.
Solid there. Back to the part about you. Obviously, you and your wife running this business. I mean, for those that are in the grind of this podcast is designed for those that are investors or entrepreneurs. What lessons did you learn along the way that you wish someone would have maybe told you earlier on or you wish you maybe would have made? Of course, sometimes I'm also of the same thought that sometimes you have to make the mistakes to learn from them too at the same time. So you can't just be handed everything. But what are some of those lessons you've learned along the way just from being a leader? Because me being an owner of a business now and so forth like that, I don't think anyone really teaches you how to be a boss. Just like some place no one teaches you how to be a parent. You just gotta, eventually you just gotta do it type of scenario. You kind of get thrown and figure it out type of scenario. But obviously you kind of lean on people who have done it before.
And that's kind of what happened to us. We kind of got thrown into the fire early on. Yeah. We really weren't ready for it, but the guy that I worked for, our general manager, he was a great guy, but he made a fair amount of mistakes, and I learned a lot from his stuff. but no, a couple things. John Ruggles, our founder, was still around. This company, one thing that's interesting about it, we skipped a generation. It didn't go from first to second generations. He had 2 children. My mother-in-law, being one of them, was not interested in the business, so it went from first to third. Gotcha. So he hung around a little longer than he wanted to be honest with you. And so he was a wealth of knowledge to pick his brain. But to be honest with you, technology was starting to grow, and he was not a ton of help with that. But the big thing that kind of set us over the top that helped Ann and I both is we're big on networking and trade organizations. And so we belong to a trade organization, with a couple of them, but WSA, which is World Sign Associates, and another one is ISA, which is International Sign Associates. And so what we do with that is we have 3 to 4 meetings a year with WSA. The smaller meetings are regional, like I'll host one here in Versailles, and companies from Indiana, Michigan, and Ohio come to us, or I'll go to their places. Yeah. Then we have an education seminar, and it's usually scattered on the East Coast or West Coast. So they have really good education programs. We go and network and learn a lot. Yeah. And then they have a national meeting every year, and they usually rotate that again, East and West. This year it's actually up in Toronto, Canada. In fact, I'll be going up there in a couple of weeks. Interesting. But that was really a game changer for me because I was able to learn from other people's mistakes. At the time I came in, computers were just coming into the business and buying CNC equipment. Some of them may have bought some before us. I was able to talk to them about what was working, what was not working. And just sitting around with people that, a little gray hair goes a long way. They've been around the block a few times, and you could just pick their brains and talk to them. And it's funny, that was 30-some years ago. And when I go to those meetings today, I'm a gray-headed guy, and guys are asking me questions. But it was invaluable for us. I mean, they didn't give us all the answers, but man, they were very helpful.
I totally agree, because in my line of work with everything, it's been humbling to see how many people are willing to just to have rubbing shoulders. Like a lot of times you can have the presentations at, say, a conference or like that, but a lot of times at least 50%, if not more, of the benefit is just rubbing shoulders with people, having those conversations, being like, what are you doing in this area that's working, or why are you so successful in this area? And the humbling aspect is like how many people have been so willing to give me that insight or their knowledge, or say, hey, you might want to shy away from this mistake, and hopefully I'll be in that kind of position one day. as well in my line of work. But that's been one of the biggest things for me. I think it's been huge as far as that goes too, for sure.
Well, no, it's been, like I said, invaluable. In fact, the other bonus to that is, now today, we are a national company and shipping stuff all over. We ship some stuff out of the country as well, but most of it's in the U.S. But a lot of these companies that I've talked about, they do work for us. We have about 3,000 subcontractors scattered across the country that we use to install the product that we produce. But we're also responsible for maintaining the fleet of these stores that we do work for. And what that means is if you have a bath and body that the bee is not illuminating, they call us, then we dispatch somebody. But the thing is, we keep great notes and archives on what we've produced. And when we get a call like that, we don't just say, go check it out and then charge me for a second trip once you figure it out, which is double the money. We try to look back to our archives and say, look, it's got GE or it's got Sloan or it's got whatever LED in it. It's this color temperature. We try to set them up so that they have the product on the truck. And so they make one trip and take care of it. So, but that network of installers is invaluable, and just being able to meet with them face to face. And I can't tell you how many times I've had. We've got about 10 project managers that work for us that scatter, that sell all this work out, and they'll use some company to do work that we've never even heard of. I'm like, you realize this guy that's 5 miles down the road, I know him. If he were in Lexington tomorrow and needed a place I'd welcome him to my house. That's how close we are. And so getting other people to understand this networking thing is kind of hard, but it's very valuable. Oh,
100%. Obviously, this is a more Kentucky-specific podcast as far as entrepreneur and business, but Lexington, especially in this, and when I say Lexington, obviously, I think everyone realizes we're talking about not just the city of Lexington. It's kind of grown outside of that aspect between Versailles and Jessamine County and Georgetown, et cetera. What have you seen that's been for you the coolest or best or your favorite thing that you've seen as far as the entire area change over the last 10 years or something like that, or maybe what's changing that you're kind of looking forward to? Because it's obviously, especially downtown, is
that's where I was going to go. Downtown, they're trying to revitalize, the Thursday Night Live, and the big thing in our business is, if you go to some of the cool cities where they have signs that project out and they've got the old neon, like if you go to Broadway, Nashville, in Vegas. I'm not saying we need to be like that at all, but what happened is the sign codes changed where everything was flat against the storefront. Now they're like, if you go down to the square downtown Lexington, you see the sign up top, and then you see some of those projecting signs. In our industry, I think that kind of makes for a cooler downtown, a little more hip, if you will. But no, we hosted a meeting, a WSA meeting here a couple of years ago, and we stayed at the Marriott with the Jeffrey, all the things that are going on downtown. It's pretty cool. And, as we travel, we see that, happening in other places. So
did you all do the big LEX down by the old courthouse in downtown?
We didn't do that, but we did like the Concorian Theater, and we're getting ready to work with the guys that are going to repurpose Festival Market, And
I don't know about that one.
Yeah, it was coming online about the time I got into the sign industry many years ago. It was cool downtown. It was called Festival Market and had all these little shops, and it's been through many changes since then. But someone's bought it, it's going to repurpose it, and they're going to do some pretty cool stuff with it. So
And obviously, you're kind of doing real estate now, and so do you all? Because you obviously have outlaws and you bought this building, so you've obviously gotten into commercial real estate of sorts, which is real estate is how this whole thing began with, started with me and the kind of the journey of this stuff. So that's what I also enjoy seeing is just taking things, redoing them, kind of creating something new out of something old, or something new out of something that's not been there at all type of scenario. So, that's something that 25 years ago or so, we started looking at what could we do to diversify our own business and in our portfolio. And at the time, the big thing was these REITs, the real estate investment trusts, and I saw what they were doing with it, and I thought, why invest in that when you could kind of create your own little REIT? So that's what we started doing. We started dumping any extra funds into real estate, and so what it's done though, and I didn't realize it at the time, but what it's done is taken the pressure off me to run this business. I like for the business to be thriving because I like for our employees to have all the hours they want to work. But at the end of the day, if it's not on fire, I don't worry about it a whole lot. And speak a little bit to that in the sense that when you came on, how many people were probably working for the company?
Oh, there wasn't but about 7 or 8 employees.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And so that concept of like when you're 7 or 8 employees, especially as either the business owner or high up in the business, of realizing in order to grow, in order to expand, in order to have forward thinking, realizing you now are going to need to start handing off responsibility and entrusting others with responsibility because you can't do it all of yourself. I can't do it all myself type of scenario. Like as far as kind of wrapping this up, what was kind of that transition like for you as far as anything to speak to on that?
Well, that's a tough one. I mean, as a small business owner, especially when you start out 7 or 8 employees and you grow it, I'm a very hands-on guy, okay? Yeah. And my wife, who's my partner, she handles the finances here and takes care of that, does a great job with it. I don't have to worry about it at all. But it allows me to deal with sales and then the manufacturing piece and scheduling and all that stuff. And that's kind of my love. I love the action. I love to take a challenging project, build it, ship it out, and then 3-4 days later, all of a sudden in your inbox, a beautiful photograph shows up. I had one today. We did a Duluth trading up in Minnesota. We've never done any work for them, but we did our first one, and it came in today, and it's spectacular. But that's the part, the action that I love. And, as we've grown, it obviously got to the point where I couldn't have my hands everywhere. Right. So, we have surrounded ourselves with some really good people. And delegation is a hard thing, and what we've been able to do is find people that we can trust and push it down. So, but I don't know how well I would do just standing on the sidelines and not doing anything. Sure. I have to have a little action. And Ann and I, we talk all the time about how long we're going to do this because we've been doing it 38, 39 years. Yeah. And I say, well, I like to continue to work. I just want to work a little bit less, okay? And so that's what I'm trying to do. I mean, we do have really good people. And the thing is that's changed, though, the pandemic changed things a lot. We were in a good spot, and we're still in a great spot, but just so much has changed the way you do business. A lot of the customers we work for, big companies, they have 500 to 3,000 stores. And a lot of their staff is remote now, and it all works just fine. And it was great to be able to have Zoom calls and do all that stuff during COVID. But now that it's behind us, they're all still remote. And I'm in the manufacturing business. We can't manufacture from home, okay? Mm-hmm. But when we're dealing with colors and we're dealing with designs, where I used to would send one package to one headquarters and everybody sat around a conference room table and look at it and give us an answer just like that. Today, one's in Colorado, one's in New York, one's in Texas, and they all want a package to look at the samples. So we send them all the samples, and we get on a Zoom call, and somebody's not opened their package, and they say, "Oh, I'm not ready for this call. Can we do it?" All I'm saying is, it works, but it's not as efficient as it used to be. Sure. I tease my people all the time. I say, we used to get it served to us on a silver platter. Now we're just grabbing and pulling just to get good information. Yeah. To roll. And I definitely think, that's a testament to the different industries for sure. Because some industries all of a sudden work way better, but obviously that's not the case for it's not a whitewash thing for everyone. No, I think it was wonderful to be able to do what we were able to do during COVID. And I still think we allow our project managers to work from home on Friday. Yeah. We tried rotating the days, and it was always a struggle to figure out who was out for what day. But Fridays is the easiest day for us to do it. But I mean, it works. But like I said, in our business. And the other thing is the guys in the back that were back there when it's 100 degrees and burning up, they're a little envious that people were not here. And but COVID has changed a lot, but it's getting back to closer to normal than it was. Well, good. Well, I don't want to keep too much of your time. If anybody is interested in learning more about it, I think there's a website or something like that. They could go learn the story in a little bit more detail, which is what, RugglesSign.com? RugglesSign.com. Appreciate your time today, and we'll see everybody back in a couple of weeks on the next episode of the Keys to the Commonwealth podcast. Thanks, Tim. Thank you.
To learn more about this podcast, visit our page at keystothecommonwealth.com. To connect with Landry regarding insuring your investment portfolio, email Landry at novainsuranceGroup.com or call 859-687-2004.